several questions you've mentioned. Let me start a little bit at the beginning. For myself, my experience with yoga began in 1963 when I was 15 years old. Had a YMCA during what was called the Human Encounters group with about 30 of my classmates in high school in Los Angeles. We sat for 2 days discussing a whole range of topics. And after 2 days, there was a great silence. We had sort of completely emptied ourselves. And at that moment, I had my first experience of samadhi, or cognitive absorption, self-realization, where I realized there was only one being in the room speaking, who had been speaking through all of us. So this experience was more real than anything I had ever experienced before. It was like experiencing the ground of reality, the ground of being, what we refer to as Satchidananda, absolute being, absolute consciousness, absolute bliss. So that was the beginning of my spiritual journey. And for several years I experimented with Zen and other practices. And the first great mystic that I met and spent time with was in 1968 with Salvador Dali. And he really set me on a new path. When I came back from Europe in 68, I was fortunate to visit the center lake shrine in Malibu, California, where Yogananda had started his work. And I read his book, Autobiography of a Yogi, and it answered so many of my existential questions. And I decided to become a monk, to join the monastery there. They put me on probation for a year and asked me to wait. And during that year, I met my teacher, Yogi Ramaya, and decided that it would be better to study with him rather than with Yogananda, who had passed away 20 years before. In 1972, Yogi Ramaya sent me to India to live in the ashram which he had established there. And this became a great experience for me to really appreciate the homeland of yoga and to appreciate a spiritual culture. So many years later, when I founded the ashram in Quebec, 1992, I took as my model the Indian ashram, which is basically, it's not a school, it's not a hotel, it's a residence of a yogi. And we teach that if you practice yoga as the center of your life intensely, whatever your residence, whether it's an apartment or a condo or a house, automatically you're living in an ashram. So an ashram is a residence of a yogi. So be a yogi and you'll be living in an ashram. But we do welcome anyone who wants to visit our ashram in Eastern Townships, just an hour, 100 kilometers from the Champlain Bridge, to come to have a personal retreat. And it's open year-round. We do offer 2 or 3 times a week a free introductory class in the 18 postures and basic meditation. It's on Tuesday mornings and Saturday mornings, for example, at 9 to 10:30. And several times a year we have what we call these initiation seminars. These are the first, second, and third initiation. And of course, all these years we have maintained our connection with India. And I've taken groups on pilgrimages to South India and to the Himalayas almost every year since 1993. Typically the places that are the most spiritual, the most, might say, uplifting, are lacking in material comfort, which, of course, Westerners are used to having. So we decided to build an ashram 10 years ago at the most significant place for us, which is the place where Babaji initiated Yogi Ramaya in 1952 into Kriya Yoga. It's a place called Badrinath, which is at 10,000 feet or 3,000 meters, 25 kilometers from the border of Tibet. And it took us 9 years to finish the construction of this ashram. It has 2 great halls of about 150 meters square each, and each also 13 apartments and many other facilities. It's only open 6 months out of the year because of the snow. It's a very remote place, but also a very sacred place where many Hindus go on pilgrimage. So we take groups on pilgrimages even today. This fall I have 2 groups that are going in September and October. And we also organize pilgrimages to sacred places in South India and Sri Lanka, where we have ashrams in Bangalore and in Colombo, Sri Lanka. So the purpose of the pilgrimage, unlike a tourist trip, is not to experience new things out there, but to find one's true self within. Throughout the trip, one uses the practices of yoga to cultivate an inner awareness.